Welcome back to Bruised Not Broken, Life with Glanzmann Thrombasthenia. This month's guests are two people who actually have Glanzmann's Thrombasthenia and who are not ever really comfortable talking about themselves, but they're very, very involved in the foundation, and I was able to persuade them. We have our very own Peter Zdziarski and Julia Smith. Those names should sound familiar. Peter is our producer as well as the vice president of the foundation, and Julia is a co-founder, and no pressure on her or anything, but kind of the whole reason the foundation was started. Now, the majority of our support group do know these two, but we do have quite a few new people as well. Julia is actually my little sister, and Julia and I's mom founded the Glanzmann's Research Foundation in 2001. Julia quickly became the face of the GRF, and in the name of GT, sacrificed pretty much all of her personal privacy growing up. Understandably, as Julia got older, she craved that privacy, and when she went off to college, she kind of took a step back out of the limelight, and the death of our mom kind of added on to that timeline, and now she is wanting to tell her story in her own words. Peter was approached by my mom a couple of years before she passed, and he has been helping with the Facebook support group in that aspect. And then when she passed away, Julia and I actually made the decision to approach Peter about being our partner in taking over the foundation. Mom and Peter's mom, Missy, have been very close for more than a decade. Peter and I first met when I was 17, so that was 2007. And even though I'd always known him throughout, stories and everything, these past 3 years, honestly, we've grown quite close. I think of him as a brother of sorts, which is why this is going to be even more fun because I'm not going to hold back. And I will say that the foundation would not be where it is today without Peter. He has been very paramount in our success. So I'm very proud of both of them for agreeing to do this. This takes a lot of courage, and it's a step out of their comfort zone. And first, I want to say thank you to both of you for doing this.
No problem.
Of course. Julia knows what Peter's been up to for these past couple of years, but I'm sure they're curious as to what you've been up to. Last we heard, really from like an update, was that you had gone off to college, and I think some people were aware that you went and studied abroad. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I went to my second semester sophomore year. I had the opportunity to travel to Trujillo, Spain, and live with the host family for about 3.5 months. That was really interesting, new experience because it was a city of 3,000 people and nobody there spoke English. It was great.
I'm sure that was a fun experience. And now you're pretty fluent in Spanish. And you had to walk everywhere there, didn't you?
Yes, definitely had to walk everywhere.
How was that?
I mean, it was fine. I feel younger. That would have been more of an issue, but now I guess I'm stronger. It was fine walking everywhere. No bleeds in my joints or anything.
Well, so when you got back, it's kind of when everything happened. Your mom had done a trip to Italy at the very, very end of your study abroad. And then within a couple of months of mom passing away, COVID hit. What exactly happened when COVID hit?
Well, everything was kind of put on pause and kind of took a break from school. And now I'm back.
What are you currently studying?
I'm an art history major. And I have my minor in Spanish, of course.
I do want to say that when she went off to Spain and everything, I don't know, we kind of all were, everybody in the family was a little bit hesitant, and you were like, I really don't care, I'm going. You had kind of a backup plan and everything, and you didn't let that stop you, which has kind of been the theme of your life. And I think that's been a theme of Peter's life too, is you're not really going to let your disorder stop you from going out and doing the things that you really want to do. One of the main reasons we started this podcast was not only to shine a light on GT as a disorder, but we also wanted to shine a light on the experiences of those with Glanzmann. This is probably hard because I have a hard time remembering my own childhood early. But what is your first GT memory? When did you first realize that you had something that other people did?
That's kind of a hard question. I think first bleed was like a GI bleed where it just started out of nowhere and I had no idea where it came from. But I don't know if I really knew I was different. I actually had my first good experience in a hospital from that. I remember all the good parts, not the bad parts.
That's good to hear, though, that the bad parts didn't stick out in your memory. Julia, do you have kind of a similar experience?
Yeah, I just thought I was pretty normal growing up, and then just explaining to people like, "Oh, I, like, bleed sometimes." Just some classmates would have peanut allergies or something like that. I didn't think it was anything odd.
Yeah, it was your normal. I didn't necessarily realize anything was different. So you each have siblings, but you have vastly different perspectives. Julia, you're the baby of the family, and Peter, you're the oldest. Was there ever a moment when you felt alienated?
I'd say for me, it was around middle school. I feel like for most people, middle school is like where the wake up calls kind of come in and you're like, oh,
Oh,
I'm different.
middle school's rough. Not only do you have to deal with like the normal hormones of, kids figuring out moodiness and everything, but that's when a lot of bullying happens too. Julia, did you ever
Uh,
feel alienated?
well, yeah, from a young age, because I would always go to the hospital with mom. I guess you and Millage never really understood that it wasn't spending special time with mom. I feel like y'all thought of it like that when that wasn't what it was. It was me having to deal with bleeds and everything. I would feel alienated from y'all because y'all would have to kind of rely on each other and have each other's back, which it's nothing to hold against you or anything. It's just how it was. And then middle school, growing up, not being able to participate in volleyball and basketball and stuff like that, other things my friends were doing.
Did you ever feel, Peter, or did you and your siblings ever kind of like fight about your mom spending more time with you, or have they ever said anything to you about?
No, I was actually going to ask you how you actually felt about it because you're
So,
here.
yeah, just to kind of let everybody know, there is an 8-year age difference between Julia and I, and a 7-year age difference between my brother and I. So when Julia was born, I was 8 years old. And I do remember my dad was in his residency. So he was working all the time. He picked up a bunch of extra shifts and stuff too to kind of help pay off student loans. And so mom kind of leaned on me to help with millage. I do think that, I mean, she's completely right in that view of it seemed like Millage and I were our own components separate from her. And it was a lot of that because I had to kind of be there for him when she was gone and try to make things as normal as possible. And so there was some fighting between Millage and Julia, definitely when it came to middle school age, because he felt like things weren't fair, that she always got what she wanted, or, we always have to do what Julia wants and everything. As we've gotten older and kind of looked back on it and really kind of realized the whole entire situation, and also had Julia speak up about a lot of things, it kind of turned, and the three of us became one big component once they were in high school, really. But there was a time there where it did feel like it was kind of Julia and mom, and then me and Millage.
Yes, definitely.
All right, so we did touch on middle school a little bit. Peter, you went to public school, right?
Yep.
Okay. And Julia went to private school. So you both actually, again, have different perspectives on this. What was school like for you? Growing up, friends? Tell me about that experience.
When GT became very aware to me, it was not fun.
Yeah.
I think being a guy, all the guys are signing up for football and baseball and stuff, and you want to do that too. And then you can't. And then they ask you, why can't you? So that's when I kind of started to stick out. And at
Mm.
least when GT became very apparent to me. And then, I mean, sometimes in gym class, but honestly, I kind of had deals with my gym teachers where we were like, listen, that form that you
Just
got,
not gonna tell anybody that I participated today.
yeah, like let me do dodgeball. I'll do volleyball. I might not be able to play the next day, but I'm going to play.
I think Julia is kicking herself for not having that idea. Well, so Peter, was your school a large school or was it a smaller school?
Oh, it was so small. And
Okay.
that probably helped with me
I
being
was
able to ask.
I was about to say, because you were basically were with the same kids from elementary school on.
Yeah, and I probably being in a small school, one thing that really annoyed me too was a teacher asked two of my friends to look out for me once, and then they told me that she said that, and I was not happy with that.
Julia, as the youngest child with two siblings that went to the same exact school as you at a very small school, how
Yeah.
was your experience growing up?
It was good in the fact that everyone I went to school with, they were like practically family. I had a graduating class of 50 people. Growing up, knowing them from that age on, they knew about me. They knew to keep an eye out for me. They knew y'all too. They had older siblings as well. And so it's just, I grew up with everyone knowing. So everyone was pretty much just used to it. But I would get left out for PE and stuff like that. Not the best time. I think it was middle school that I finally decided, okay, it's not productive for me to just be sitting on the sidelines the whole time and watching everyone else do fun stuff that I can't participate in. And so I was like, I'll come for the days that I can participate, and the rest of the time, let me have a study hall.
You remember this, Joy. Anytime that you transitioned from elementary school up to middle school or middle school up to high school, do you remember mom having a meeting with all the teachers and your entire class?
Yes,
Okay.
very much.
Her heart was in the right place, definitely. Her whole thing was raising awareness. To her, the whole school should know. And so I do remember her kind of sitting down with Julia's class and explaining to them what Glanzmann's was in middle school. And then I remember her talking to a lot of the teachers too. But Julia also had a lot of teachers that I had. And because it was such a small community, all of these teachers knew when I came through that Julia had GT because every single science class that I was in, when we got to the genetics portion, use my family as an example because of GT and it being an autosomal recessive disorder. It was very well known within our small community.
I didn't realize how fortunate that was until I got to college. I think I was 2 weeks in one of my classes and walking into class. And I got to college Charleston. I was wearing like jean shorts or something, walking into class by bare legs, which is normal in Augusta. I can walk around, no one says anything. Walking into class, this girl behind me just gasped and she's like, "Oh my God, what's on your leg?" And I'm looking down thinking there's a bug or something on my leg. What is wrong? And they're like, "You had a huge bruise on your thigh." And it's just then I having to explain to my class, and I'm like, "I'm fine. Nothing's wrong with me. Nothing's happening at home." Just having to explain to them that I have GT. It's just that was like my first like, oh yeah, people don't know this. It's not
Yeah.
normal.
Peter, did you have anything similar when you finally got out of your little bubble too?
Yeah, when I transferred to Boston, my first day there was the day after my wisdom teeth were out. I had two huge black eyes.
Oh no.
But honestly, that actually helped me make more friends. It was the first day, and
Yeah.
everyone's like, "Let's go talk to the kid with two giant black eyes and ask him what happened."
Julia, I'm going to ask the hard question. What was it like growing up with a mom who ran the foundation?
It was great, honestly, because I've always known other people who have this same disorder. There's never a time I don't remember knowing someone with similar experiences and just being able, the way she was about reaching out to doctors and stuff, going above and beyond about getting answers to our questions and reaching out for other people as well because there are issues that other people had that I wouldn't necessarily have, but we would learn for them. And she would always be open and involve me about stuff like that.
No, we kind of touched on it when I was introducing you to, but I think that there really wasn't much privacy when it came to you medically in any way. We've always been an open book when it comes to your own medical experiences. I guess, how did that feel growing up? Never really having a moment to where only a handful of people knew. It was as soon as something happened, basically the whole community knew with you.
Wasn't great because I literally had no privacy. Sometimes you just want to go out and have normal day. No one knows anything about you. You can just ignore what's going on. That could never happen with me.
How did that affect your relationship with mom? Not necessarily the privacy thing, the being so involved with each other in day to day. You not only were you her job as a parent, but and also running the foundation. So you were her entire life.
Well, I mean, I would just get annoyed if she talked to people about what was going on with me.
I don't know if all moms and daughters are like this, but I do know that you and I were like this with her, where any downtime during our day, we would call her and we would constantly be texting her throughout the day. Obviously, you two were very close. And I do think that a lot of that has to do with how much time and how much y'all had kind of gone through together. Now, Peter, your mom has always been a bear when it comes to your health and your treatment. Do you think that that has had a big impact on y'all's relationship?
The reason why I'm gonna say not too much is actually a good thing. Like, growing up, I never thought of myself as different. I just I knew I had this thing, and I just dealt with it, and I think that's a really big thing that other parents could take away is try your best to make sure someone's just living their life to the fullest, you know? They've
Yeah,
never known any other way, so
absolutely. And I mean, with you, it's a little different for boys than it is with girls. You know, you get through but basically that like 3 to 7 where it's constant nosebleeds, constant gum bleeds, just constantly having some sort of issues. And then with boys, it's kind of like as you get older, you're seeing less and less problems. And then with girls, it's the other, it's a whole different thing because you're having to worry about puberty and having to plan all of that.
and I mean, I always knew she was there when something bad happened, so we were ready to go. We had the whole, where we're going, what to do, and
I always had a plan.
and I gotta say my dad too, because what he would do is you know how all the nosebleeds seem to happen at night? So he would pinch it for me as I'm sleeping.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Julia she has this little contraption that does it, but it's not like a intense pinching. It's not like a closed in, but
Yeah, it's got like a film thing on it.
Yeah, I needed that vice grip.
we have talked about how both sets of parents were very good about trying to make your lives as normal as possible and make you feel like you weren't necessarily all that different and letting you kind of lead the way as you were growing up. Are you happy with how your parents navigated your diagnosis? I mean, is there anything that you would have, like now looking back, is there anything that you wish would have been handled possibly differently?
Since I didn't really know how it was handled, it would have been whatever was done with teachers in the back. I don't know how they were or how my mom spoke to them or what really happened, but I didn't like being singled out by teachers.
Well, that was like inevitable with the community I was in. I mean, in the environment that I was in, there's really nothing else that could have happened. I had to be in private school just because the amount of nosebleeds, the amount of issues I had, there's no way I could have been in public school. With private school, the teachers, they would work with me. They would send homework and stuff home. They just went above and beyond. But that was just the environment that I grew up in, the community that we had.
Both of y'all actually took part in extracurriculars. Now, Julia, I know that you didn't do any like school sports or anything, but growing up, you did do some sports. And Peter, you did too. What sports did y'all take? Did you do any, I wouldn't say base jumping or anything. Did you ride a bike? Were you wearing full on bubble wrap when you did it? Or were you allowed to, just wear a helmet?
Well, if we're talking about bikes, I wanted to teach myself how to do a bike because my parents were too scared of it. So we just used some comfy grass, and that's how I taught myself.
Yeah.
But other than that, yes, I did. I swam and I did tennis, and I think those are great sports for anyone that has Glanzmann. Swimming is like huge.
I did swimming in elementary, middle school too. And then I'm a baby. I didn't like swimming in the coldness. And I was like, I'm done. I don't like being cold. I did tennis until like around middle school. And that's when I would hit the ball and stuff. My hands at the end of practice would swell up and be all bruised up from holding the racket and hitting the ball all the time. That's about
Wow.
the time I couldn't do that anymore. I mean, everyone's GT levels are like a little different.
Yeah.
And then I did cross country, so running, and that was a good sport. And then all my friends were doing like volleyball and stuff like that. So I started managing for the volleyball team so that way I could at least like still travel with them. Still feeling like a little left out from it all, but at least I could still be with my friends.
What is your happiest memory as a teenager?
I think it was
Would you
probably
say
swimming related
swimming?
for me. I think the reason why I was, because GT was the reason why I was shoved into swimming so young. I wouldn't have been as good at it if I had other sports on the side. So
Yeah.
like being good at swimming was really cool for me.
Julia was really good at swimming too, and then she quit because she got too cold. But in her defense, by the end, like especially the nighttime meets that were outside, her lips would be blue, like at the end of the night.
One
She's
thing
Like,
I
oh,
wanted to
shit.
ask though, did the water help with your nosebleeds, Julia? Because for me, that was the one thing I felt like the water continuously cleaning my nose was good for it.
It probably did because especially when I'm talking about the indoor stuff like that, that's when I quit because I did not like doing it like during the winter and everything. But I loved it during the summer. And during the summer, I hardly ever had nosebleeds because partly because of the humidity, partly because swimming all the time. So it probably would have helped if I stuck to it in the winter.
I think as we've kind of like paid more attention and asked more and more questions throughout the community, we started to realize too that the more active you are, the less likely you are to have joint bleed. And I feel like swimming, I mean, they have older people who have arthritis, they have them go into the swimming pool and everything to help with their joints. So I feel like it could, not only would it be a sport for you to actually be able to participate in, but it can actually be very good for your body because you're able to exercise.
One thing that a lot of people don't realize is like exercise is so essential for GT patients, for everyone in general, but GT patients, just because it does help with everything. It helps prevent joint bleeds and all that, at least in my experience. Like,
Because you, just from our own personal experience with you, we would go to a theme park, when you were younger. And after the first day, you'd have to be in a wheelchair because your ankles or your knees would start to hurt really bad. But then, as you got older and you started, especially college or Charleston, where you were walking everywhere. And then you went to Trujillo and it's the same exact thing, walking everywhere. You kind of didn't have those pains anymore. Peter, you do a lot of weightlifting.
I mean, there was a short period where I did nothing in college, and it definitely my body punished me for it. I bled a lot. My elbow, I had an elbow surgery, and my elbow would like lock up on me. And then when I started weightlifting, even my elbows started to feel better. And yeah, you just feel prepared for bleeds when you go to the hospital when you're in good shape.
You've told me these kind of your best memories. What's your worst?
the most annoying one was probably I took a trip with my school to France, and I was so excited to go, spending time with my friends, seeing a new culture the first time, all this. And halfway through my trip, I had issues and had to go to the hospital and cut it short. And one of my teachers had to stay behind, and she was looking forward to the rest of the trip too. And so that was just a big bummer. The fact I was really looking forward to it, and I thought I was prepared, ready for it, could be out on my own. And halfway through, GT got in the way.
I think I can speak for our family in saying that that's kind of like one of our worst memories for the GT through the GT aspect because it was kind of this more than usual helpless feeling. For some reason, no one in our family had a valid passport, even though Julia was leaving the country, except for my grandmother. And the French hospital would not release her. So she not only needed a guardian there, but she needed to be released into medical care. My dad had always had, it's called MedJet. It's a insurance basically. If you're anywhere within the world that you're not at a hospital that is not necessarily up to par, but equipped to handle it, and you want to get home back to your hospital or anything, then private medical insurance, they'll go and they'll fly a nurse out to get you and bring you.
Wow.
Julia's kind of like you, Peter, where she's going to not necessarily give the full details of how bad it is.
I was fine. The next day, I just needed more blood. I lost a lot of blood, so they gave me a transfusion. I was fine. within the next day, but they wouldn't release me.
Well, Peter, what is yours?
Mine happened freshman year of college. So not too far back, but I'm counting
Yeah.
this. Because, you go to college and you're like, oh, I can totally start fresh and I don't have to be the bleeder kid anymore. But
Julia knows all about that.
so I was trying and we, for some reason, went to a ice skating rink and I kept falling and falling on my butt. And afterwards, I had to go to school, go to class and sit down, and I couldn't sit down.
Oh, no.
And I had to explain to so many people why I couldn't sit in class or it hurt for me to sit. So that was very awkward.
Yeah.
But again, like how I met a lot of friends, some of the bad parts, I made some really good friends from it. So that's
Yeah.
good.
I know Julia has not been a fan of explaining to new friends or new peers that she has GT. And I can see that. Like Peter said, when you go off to college, you kind of want that fresh start. Let's talk mental health. Growing up is really hard. I mean, we talked about it at the very beginning of how middle school is. So it's hard enough as is, as a girl, especially a guy too. And I know that a lot of bullying really starts in middle school. Did either of y'all ever deal with that and T directed, or was it just kind of a you're different than us type thing?
I didn't really get bullied that much. I
Yeah.
just didn't like being able to participate in things. I have a feeling Julia's different because I know girls are rough.
Well, I wasn't really bullied. It was more like being left out.
Yeah.
But that was due to I missed half my 7th grade year and half my 8th grade year. And
Mhm.
so a lot of the girls that I grew up with, they had grown closer. They went through essential middle school experiences together
Yeah.
that I was not part of, and they grew closer to each other while I was not necessarily. So it was more of like missing out type thing. That's what I would get the
Yeah.
most hung up on, is that I would have to be at home while everyone else is continuing on.
When you got to high school, did it kind of stay along the same, or did you see improvement?
Yeah, there was improvement. I still had my friends and everything, and it was fine. It's just everyone knew I had issues.
Just like a constant itch that's there and you just kind of deal with it. I think you
Yeah.
get better at just, I don't know, living with it.
Yeah. Transitioning from high school to college. That is a rough one as is, because you're leaving home for the first time, especially if you're going somewhere that's a little bit further away from home. What exactly was that like?
Great for me because, like, I'd go start over. No one knows me as a weird, sickly girl who bled all the time. So
Yeah.
I'd just go be normal, make friends. It's the closest I ever got to normalcy
Mhm.
ever in my life. Because I pretty much ignored the fact that I had GT and lived my life, and it was great.
That was about the same for me. You're your own person. So you get to start the way you wanted to start, kind of. That
Mhm.
makes sense. I mean, I was also going to Boston, so like all the best doctors were around, and I think that helped with my parents.
And I had less issues for some reason during school. I had like nosebleeds occasionally, but like I knew how to pack it myself at home. Didn't really need to go see an ENT throughout school.
I mean, your most common bleed is a nosebleed. And so when it comes to that, you're pretty self-sufficient with that, aren't you, Julia?
Yes, very self-sufficient with that. There's only been a few times it was this past year at Thanksgiving that I actually had to go in and see a doctor. And that was the first time, I think, 4 or 5 years that I've had to do that for a nosebleed. So I'm pretty good at stopping them on my own, or like within a couple days or so.
If there was anything that you could tell your younger self, what would it be?
Look, I got tattoos.
Julia got her first tattoo when she was what?
First one I got when I was 19. Second one I got when I was 20.
How was that for you?
The tattoos were fine. It was normal. I got a piercing, like a navel piercing, when I was 18, and that was when I was still living at home. That one didn't go as great. I think I bled for like 6 hours for that.
Yeah.
Jeez. What about ears? Do you have your ears pierced?
Ears pierced, fine. That's normal.
She just kind of like threw it all. She went and got like one of the most painful spots tattooed as her first tattoo, which is right on the ribs. But the reason why she got it there was because it would be easiest to find.
That's smart.
So, Joy, you didn't tell me what you would tell your younger self. How about don't worry, you'll find your people in college?
That's true.
There you
Because
go.
growing up in a small community, like you get labeled as like a certain thing your entire life, and then you go off to college and you're able to fully be yourself. And I feel that's a universal thing with everyone, and that you will find your people. And I did, and I still have my people.
And that's great. As someone who, watched the struggles and everything, I think that it's great that you found people that you are able to rely on and they're able to rely on you when you were off at college. And it definitely made me feel better. So it is easy to only focus on the negatives of GT. Feel like that's it's easy. It's the main thing, oh, I can't do this because of GT or I can't do that because of GT. What are some of the positive things that Glanzmann's has brought into your life?
Well, the people, the community, for sure. Getting to connect with Peter and his mom and just all over the country. It's like a family whenever we get together because we've all, even if we've never met in person before, we all know each other's stories. We all know what we've been through because we've been in the same place. And then when I went over to Europe with mom and we all got together in England and getting to meet everyone in the UK, that was incredible because we all have shared experiences from different cultures. And just, I would have never experienced going through visiting like Switzerland and all these different places, England and Italy, meeting up with people at GT, just having friends spread out all over the world.
And it is like having a big extended family. Feels like the community celebrates together, grieves together, is just really there. And I'm very appreciative of that myself. Peter, what about you? I know she kind of gave your answer too, I'm assuming, by the way.
Yeah. I also think of like GT brought certain experiences to my life that I probably wouldn't have experienced if I was normal. So I think of all those experiences I would have not had if I didn't have GT.
I can say, just knowing both of you, I think that it has helped y'all excel in crisis management as well.
Well, we're
Full
so
different
used to fixing it ourselves. So you want
Yeah.
to fix it yourself before you go.
Julia, I mean, you definitely have a talent for nose packing. I'm going to eventually talk you into doing a video tutorial. What is something that you want to tell those in the community who are still in the throes of childhood/teenagedom?
It does get more manageable. It's missing out on sports and friends is not the end of the world. You will work your way through it and it is your normal and it's not fair. It really isn't fair. But you work through it and it does get better. And you will, like you said, find your people, find your your way of managing.
Try your best just to treat them as being normal because this is all they've ever known. So in their head, they're normal. And
Yes, exactly.
they're not going to know they're not normal until that fun day. But just be a kid for as long as you can be.
And as much as you want to wrap them in bubble wrap, try not to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, guys, again, like I said earlier, thank you for doing this. I know that this was not the most comfortable thing for either one of y'all. I tried not to ask too full of questions, even though I did kind of get some eye rolls and looks from both of y'all throughout that whole thing. I do want to end this with a little bit of business. So, as we announced in the last one, the GRF conference is coming up this coming July 2023. It is going to be July 26th through the 29th. And that is going to be in Boston. We will be opening up registration, I believe, towards the end of January. It is going to be limited because this is our first one. And because we're working with a certain budget, there are only going to be a certain number of spots. It is going to end up being a first come, first serve. We are trying to do travel grants for at least 25 people, and we are raising money for all of this. We're raising money for the conference and we're raising money for the travel grants. Ask your doctors or ask, your friends or anything to sponsor one group to travel is $1,500. So I feel like, we can find that. I definitely want people to be able to make it, and the people who wouldn't necessarily be able to afford to travel to be able to make it as well. So Julia and Peter shared a lot of their story with you today. It is only fair that I ask you to do the same. Go to our website, www.curegt.org, and you can submit your story under Faces of GT. If you haven't checked it out before, there's some great stories in there, and we're going to continue to interview people with Glanzmann. It won't necessarily be the same questions. Everybody's story is a little bit different, just like how everybody's GT is different. We have people who have gone a little bit more crazy with their extracurriculars and have done barrel racing on horses and stuff. And we have people who play football and soccer as well. So we will be having people come out and talk to us in the future. And if you're interested in being interviewed by us, definitely give us a shout either through Facebook or through our website to the general email.